Here we are in North Arlington in a really lovely neighborhood near a shopping mall that everyone goes to on Harrison Street. It's considered safe. It has a sushi place, a Chinese place, an Italian place, a Starbucks, either a Whole Foods or Harris Teeters. Anyway, the neighborhood looks like this. It's called Harrison Hills. This may actually be a neighborhood called Terry Levy that's beside Harrison Hills, but they're both very similar. The houses here all start out around $800,000 or $900,000 if you buy one now. The houses we're seeing right now are actually older ones. Occasionally you see a newer one that somebody's just torn one of these down and built sort of a much larger McMansion that takes up more of the block. And when people do that, they usually want more like $1.5 million. The interesting thing about this neighborhood is that it's where Eugene Robinson, the Washington Post columnist, lives. Eugene Robinson mainly writes columns decrying America as racist and attacking people who are in favor of limited government as racist. Every once in a while, back in 2010 he did it, he writes a column where he says, of course someone who merely disagrees with my opinion, merely favors tax cuts and individual liberty and limited government and respecting the Constitution and opposes President Obama, isn't necessarily a racist. And then he'll go on to say, but in fact, so many people seem to have all at once come to these opinions that the only reason can possibly be because Obama's a black man and they're racist, as opposed to the fact that Obama is a socialist, a big statist, and after having swallowed and rolled over Bush's statism, they don't want to take any more. Some of them, no doubt, having accepted in the first case because the Republicans and their party leaders said to accept it, and now it's being done by somebody of another party, and they didn't like it in the beginning, but they're certainly not going to take it from somebody who's A, making it worse, B, continuing it another 4 or 8 years, and C, is not in their party, none of which are racial issues. What's interesting about Eugene Robinson living in this neighborhood is that Eugene Robinson is one of these people, one of the many African Americans like Touré and Jonathan Capehart and Melissa Perry Ellis, who were popped out by MSNBC just to attack people for being racist. There's some neighbors. They're not people of color. Anyway, these people are used for their black faces and their journalistic credential to smear other people as being racist. The Tea Party, in Van Jones' case, libertarians, who he said oppose gay rights and immigrants, even though libertarians are generally in favor of getting the government out of the bedroom, getting the government out of marriage licenses, usually marriage equality, and usually free trade and open borders, and free immigration. At any rate, here we have Eugene Robinson's neighborhood. It's a zip code in North Arlington that is 2% African American. One of my friends joked that means that Eugene Robinson, his 2 sons, and his wife Alvis are the 2% African Americans in this neighborhood. Even though it's 98% non-black, and the purpose of this tape is we're going to walk around and see if we see any black people. I just did another tape going away from his house. Now we're going toward it. We walked for 10 minutes. We saw some kids playing, some people in cars, a few neighbors doing home repairs. None of them were African American. The lady in that car, you probably couldn't see because the window was tinted. She was Caucasian. These kids were either trying to entice me into a yard sale or to buy lemonade are all white. At any rate, you want me to buy a yard? No. At any rate, this neighborhood is, according to City Data, a website. You can look up the demographics and other features of neighborhoods by the zip code. This zip code is, I think, slightly less than 2% African American. It is not 98% white, because there's slightly more than 2% Asians and somewhat more than 2% Hispanics here. So it's only in the high 80s in terms of whiteness. Although, that's this zip code. From what I can see, the neighborhood we're in is in the big 900,000 and up houses is actually almost all white. I think the Hispanics who keep this neighborhood from being 98% white all live in little condos and apartments down on the main streets in the more urban area. But this is where Eugene Robinson chose to live. He's chose, in his case, unlike all the white liberal Democrats and white progressives who scream at everyone and call them racist while living in all white neighborhoods, in his case, his moving here actually slightly integrated the place. The usual pattern is for people like David Gregory and Andrea Mitchell and Chris Matthews and Hillary Rosen and Jay Carney to call everyone else a racist and then to move their white selves to lily white neighborhoods. One thing you can say in Eugene Robinson's defense is he actually moved here in the 80s, and he may have been integrating the place by a drop, although nobody seems to have followed him. It remains by a drop. There's Eugene's house down behind that yellow traffic sign. He's got the White House. And we've been walking around for a while now. About 7 minutes. My other tape, I went for 10 whole minutes. And so far we haven't seen any black people. There's his neighbor, a blonde lady with a blonde child, and somebody is in Eugene Robinson's backyard talking to them. I have parked around the other side of Eugene's house, so we're going to walk past it. Maybe we'll see who's in the backyard waving. It might be Alvis, his wife. I saw hands waving. I couldn't tell what color they were. They were kind of in between. Anyway, Eugene was doing some repairs on his driveway. This would be a teardown in this neighborhood now, as would Eugene's house. Although there's no reason to tear them down. They're all in good repair and they have lovely landscaping, but people do tend to tear these down now and build $2 million McMansions in places like this. These $900,000 houses from the 80s, when they were in the high twos, aren't considered chic anymore. At any rate, we're now at 8 minutes. So far, with the possible exception of someone's hand in Eugene Robinson's backyard, we have not seen any African American people, including, if you couldn't see them through the windows, the few cars that have driven past me have all been Caucasians. We actually haven't seen any Hispanics or Asians either, and they are in this neighborhood somewhere. The Hispanics actually outnumber the African Americans. I don't know that the Asians do. But I haven't even seen anybody from India. And Northern Virginia has plenty of Vietnamese and Korean and Indian and Chinese computer programmers, some of whom own their own small cybersecurity firms and could buy a house in this neighborhood, but haven't seen one. Okay. There's Eugene Robinson's house from the side. I actually didn't stare into the car that just passed by. I don't know if it showed up on camera. Perhaps that was the one African American around here, and I missed them. Perhaps. From what I've seen so far, I'm beginning to doubt it. Oh, we're at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Either Chris Matthews or I think it was Rachel Maddow actually had Eugene Robinson on to attack me. Neither called me first for my Tea Party Guide to Washington a couple of years ago, implying or actually stating that I was a racist. I live in a neighborhood that's a lot blacker than this one. Bye, Eugene.